Someone is making money off of your data and it is not you. So today I'm going to be talking about what the credit bureaus are actually doing with your data, why this is such a big problem, and what's going on in Congress that could change the credit system forever. But first, my name is Tiffany. I'm a loan officer here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I've helped over 200 families with their real estate needs and would love to help you with yours. This includes things such as buying a home, refinancing a home, maybe taking out some equity in your home. Whatever the case may be, I am happy to assist any way I can. So I'm going to leave my information in the description below. So if you would like to work with me, we can connect and see how I can best serve you. As well, this is a growing channel and I greatly appreciate everyone who's been liking, subscribing, commenting. So thank you so much. And if you are brand new here, I would love to see you around here more often. So I would love for you to subscribe, maybe like this video, maybe share this with someone who might need this information. All of these things would really help me and the growth of this channel, help get this message out to more people who need to know about what's currently going on with our credit system. With that being said, I'm going to hop into today's video. So everyone's pretty familiar with the credit bureaus like Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. All of these, credit bureaus, we look at our score each month and we're like, okay, where's my TransUnion score at? Where's my Equifax score at? All of these different things. And a lot of times people just assume that these three bureaus are just tracking your information and that, they give you your score at the end of the month. But that's actually not the main thing that these credit bureaus are doing with your information. In fact, their main business is actually selling your information. And let's just say you are applying for a mortgage or you're applying for an auto loan or even a credit card. So you go to a bank and you apply with the person that you're entrusting to do this process for you. That person is running your credit basically to see, hey, do you fit the guidelines and standards that they have in order to go forward with this product? They pull your credit and then they tell you yes or no, basically. Or they start the process, whatever that looks like. But on the back end, you've just basically flagged to the credit bureaus, all three of them, that, hey, I'm interested now in shopping for a product. Let's just say it's a mortgage for this case. You go apply with a person, hopefully me, for a mortgage, and I pull your credit to see where you stand and if I'm able to pre-approve you. But on the back end, all these credit bureaus are taking your information and now they're saying, hey, this person's interested in a mortgage. You guys should reach out to them. Now, dozens, if not hundreds of different lenders now have your information because they bought the lead from the credit bureaus. So they get your contact information, they get a general idea of where your credit score came back at, and they also get the product that you're shopping for. So, if you're shopping for a mortgage, they know you're shopping for a mortgage. And they go and send off this information to a bunch of other lenders, and then you're getting hit up for days on end from these lenders saying, hey, are you interested in a mortgage? Are you shopping for a mortgage? Blah, 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 blah. And I've seen this happen so many times. And it's the biggest thing I have to warn people about because I know how intimidating it is when you go and you get your credit pulled and you're ready to start the process. And that's scary enough as is to turn in all your documents. Then to get harassed for the next few days from different lenders who happen to buy your information from the credit bureaus. Like, hey, are you shopping for a mortgage? I can get you a lower rate. I can get you a better term. Blah, 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 blah. It's just a lot of stuff that happens in that very first process if you are buying home. This also happens if you're getting an auto loan or if you're trying to get a credit card. You ever notice how if you apply for a credit card, your email is then flooded with other offers for credit cards? It's because the credit bureaus have sold your information that, hey, you're interested in a credit card to a bunch of other people who also have credit cards that they can sell to you. And now you're getting bombarded with that same product. And this practice is very common for the credit bureaus. This is how they make most of their money. What really sucks is you never agreed to this. You didn't sign off saying, hey, you can sell my information to other people. Maybe I want a better deal. So a lot of times people are confused about this because they've just gone and started this process with one person, and that's supposed to be the person who's taking care of them, only to get harassed for days, if not weeks later from other companies, sometimes pretending to be the original company that you applied for. I've seen this happen so many times where someone's getting a call out of the blue and that new lender is trying to act like they're the old lender to get their business. This is a very crazy industry. But now you're starting to see the backside of why this is such a dangerous practice in the first place. This is completely legal. The credit bureaus, this is completely normal for them to do. This is a standard business practice for them. This is how they make most of their money, is selling your data. And this just leaves a sour taste for everyone's mouth who's involved. So I touched on some, things before about why this is such a big issue, but I'm going to go further. I'm going to take this another step further because this is actually a really huge issue. And for the most part, I'm pretty unbiased when I try to give you guys information, but on this particular issue, I'm very biased. I think it's because in general, this is such a deceptive practice for most people because again, you never agreed to this in the first place. You didn't sign off on a dotted line to say, hey, when I go to apply for this mortgage or when I go to apply for this auto loan, I am okay with getting harassed for the next few days, if not weeks, by someone else trying to sell me stuff that I already made up my mind that I wanted to go with this person for. I just think it's a really deceptive act. This is such a terrible process on all ends because on my end, I have worked hard to build up trust with the client so that they choose to apply with me. And when I go pull their credit, there's a chance that that business now leaves because someone else is also offering them the world, which wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if I wasn't already paying for that as well. So credit bureaus are making money on both ends. When I go and pull someone's credit, I have to pay a fee to the credit bureaus to get access to their information. And then the credit bureaus also get paid when someone else buys this lead, whether or not they decide to go forward with it or not. So the credit bureaus are just making all of this money from being a data broker, and they're just basically waving their little flag like, I have what everyone really wants. I have this person's credit score, I have all their contact information, I have their address, I have where they've lived for the last few years, and I'm gonna basically put that over everyone's head. So if you really think about it, the credit bureaus are acting way out of line with the power that they've been given with such sensitive information that affects pretty much everyone. You know, I'm not a big person who's like abolish the credit system, but I do think that there should be an overhaul to the way that we see credit going forward because again, the credit bureaus really don't have a lot of competition. They really do act as a monopoly and they're able to do pretty much what they want because they govern such sensitive information that pretty much everyone wants access to. There's always someone who's trying to sell a mortgage or an auto loan or a credit card, all of these things that are, impacted by your credit score. And they have all of this power to basically get money from the person who originally got the person in the door in the first place, and then also from people who are trying to get more people into their door. This is just a really crazy cycle on all ends as far as how much the credit bureaus are displaying their power throughout this whole process. And what really sucks is that trust that's lost with the client and the original person who pulled their credit. Because think about it this way. If you've just given your most sensitive information to someone who you're trying to get, either a mortgage from, an auto loan, credit card from, and then you get harassed for the next few days by other people who now have your information, the natural line of thought is, hey, this person sold my information. Like if someone applies for a mortgage with me and then they get harassed for the next few days because someone's interested in a mortgage, then the natural train of thought is Tiffany sold my information, when that's not the case at all. If I have built up a relationship with you and I'm helping you with the transaction, I want to be the one to help you. I don't get anything out of the deal. In fact, I've lost money if you decide to go with someone else because I already paid for your credit information. That is not something that I would want to put my name on or have someone assume that that's what happened, because that's not the case. I want to work with you. If I have built up a trust in business with you, then I want to work with you. But that isn't always the case. In fact, I've lost clients to people who have hit them up later down the line. And it's the biggest thing now that when I get people and I'm talking to them and we're filling out an application together, it's like, hey, you're going to get a bunch of calls. You're going to get hit up like email, text, all of these things. Just ignore them. And there's actually a way you can do this a little bit later down the line, but I'll tell you that a little bit later. It's a really terrible act in the whole grand scheme of things. It creates a lot of confusion and it's unnecessary. Truthfully, it's unnecessary. This is how the credit bureaus are exercising their power with such sensitive information, and I think it's a big problem. And I'm not the only one who thinks it's a big problem. So let's talk about what Congress is doing about this, because this is actually where things start to get really interesting. This conversation around trigger leads originally started back in 2023 during that congressional year. And there was this bill called the Trigger Lead Abatement Act of 2023 that it got introduced and it seemed to have a good amount of support. However, it pretty much died. It was included in a larger bill and it was eventually taken out so that that bill would pass, which is very interesting because it seemed to have support going into it, and then all of a sudden Congress decided to just drop it. So I'm assuming there was probably some lobbying that was going on. The credit bureaus were very scared about this, and so since it was attached to a larger bill and Congress really just probably didn't want to deal with it at that point to get the bigger bill passed, they went ahead and just took it out. This has been reintroduced as of late, homebuyer privacy protection. So this got introduced last year, and this has been, receiving so much support from people in the industry like me that truly value the relationships that they have with their clients and want to, ensure that even when we go to apply for things, that our information is safe and secure and that it's not getting passed around like a hot potato, basically. The National Association of Mortgage Brokers actually went on record and announced their support for the Homebuyer Privacy Protection Act. And here's what they say is at stake. Right now, when a home buyer applies for a mortgage, that inquiry is sold by credit bureaus without the consumer's knowledge or consent. This leads to a barrage of unsolicited offers, confusing communication, and even the risk of fraud. So, the House Bill 2808 and Senate Bill 1467 fix this by requiring consumers to first opt in before their information can be shared, or that the lender already has an existing relationship with the consumer. This is about giving power back to the people, making one of the biggest financial decisions of their lives. So basically what the bill would entail is before you run your credit, you have that opt-in that a lot of people see on the actual application. So if you ever go apply for something, you have to give your consent that, hey, I'm okay with getting my credit pulled. But now there would be another option about, hey, do I authorize this person to have access to my credit information, which would stop your information getting, basically sold like a hot potato to other people who don't have a relationship with you, don't have any kind of communication with you already, and that just want to use your information basically to push their business forward. So again, this has been very widely supported by a lot of people in the industry that do not like this practice and that see this as deceptive and unfair to all parties affected. But let's talk about how this would actually, get changed. So the House and Senate legislation would amend the Fair Credit Reporting Act to prohibit consumer reporting agencies from furnishing a trigger lead except in limited circumstances. What's interesting about this is that it's actually already passed in the Senate. In fact, they passed it last year at their final meeting of the year in December before they went on their Christmas break. And since it passed Senate, it is now going to be introduced in the House to basically see, does this now become a law? Congress works on their own time. So, you would think the Senate already passed it, the House should already, mention it. But it's still going through the House and basically their committees are researching these different issues. There's probably people on both sides that are talking to Congress and in particular the committee that probably oversees the finances of America. They are probably getting lobbied like crazy. And so right now it's under what's called review. And if you're not like me and you don't spend a lot of time on congress.gov, then I would highly recommend, maybe checking it out some of these days. Basically, you can actually track where the bill is at. And as of right now, it is still sitting at the House. They received it pretty much as soon as the Senate received it. On the, website, they're not mentioning anything about it getting added to like a potential meeting or all of these things. So I'm assuming this is basically going on behind the scenes where Congress people are, waiting for their constituents to reach out to them to tell them if they like this bill or if they don't like this bill. They're probably getting meetings from the credit bureaus themselves, trying to have meetings with different lawmakers to see if they can infiltrate their lobbyists to prevent this from going forward. There's probably a lot of back end stuff going on right now, but they're expected to tackle this issue at some point in the year. A lot of people are estimating it's probably going to be in the fall time. I would expect some news about this to come out in the nearby future, but I bet you there's a lot going on behind the scenes right now about whether or not this gets to see the light of day in the House. Even though it has already passed the Senate, you would assume they would probably talk about it sooner rather than later. What this bill would mean would be completely to overhaul the credit system as we know it. Because now the credit bureaus are essentially going to have to act as a nonprofit where, they're basically just in business to give us a credit score. And they're not allowed to sell your information anymore to people who have no connection to you, no relationship with you, which I think would be a huge win. But I know that would be a huge change for the credit bureaus as we currently see them. There's a lot of people who are like, maybe we should just overhaul the credit system, maybe completely start new. If this passes, I don't doubt that might be a solution that happens here. But in the meantime, I do think that the credit bureaus are just going to continue business as normal until they hear from Congress that this is completely past both the Senate and the House and now would go to the president for him to sign off on it. There's still, a lot of things up in the air about Congress, but I do think it's good that we're seeing so much movement on it and that it's not getting the original act's treatment, the Trigger Leads Abatement Act, where it basically just died in Congress. I hope that this one gets to see the light of day. And I take it right now that this is actually probably good news that we're not seeing a lot happen with it, because I think that the lawmakers that are in Congress are hopefully taking, a good amount of time and really researching this issue at hand and talking to constituents and talking to, professionals like myself that could give them insight into why this is such a deceptive practice in the first place. So let's wrap this up. A little bit earlier, I mentioned how you can actually stop this yourself before you ever decide to apply for anything in particular. And there's a really great website called optoutprescreen.com that allows you to put your information in and say, I do not authorize other people to contact me if I go and pull my credit. So basically, it never shows up. The credit bureaus have to flag it as, this information can't be sold. Unless you already have a relationship with that bank, like let's just say you go apply with ABC Bank and you happen to already bank at CDE Bank. CDE Bank could still get your information because you have a relationship with them. But you don't have hundreds of people who are trying to get your information, who even have access to your information. I will say I believe there is a cost to do that. So if you are someone who does not want to pay that, then you might just want to wait for this bill to pass. Or even if you're someone who doesn't have something going on right now, I don't recommend doing that. Like if you're not going to go apply for credit right now, I would not recommend doing that. But if you are someone who is interested in a mortgage, an auto loan, a credit card, all of these things, it might be worth you paying a little bit so that you don't get harassed later down the line by hundreds of phone calls or emails or texts, all of these things, before you go and apply for those things. I'm going to put the website down here, so if you didn't catch that earlier, it's optoutprescreen.com. And then as well, I'm hoping that this sees some forward motion in Congress. I do think that there is a lot of lobbying going on at the moment, especially because if this does pass, the credit bureaus are basically out of luck as far as their business model goes. So this would be a huge change for them. And the credit bureaus have a lot of money and a lot of power behind them. So it's going to take a lot for this to pass. But I'm hopeful that this Congress session will do what's right for all parties affected and go ahead and pass this, since it has already passed in the Senate. It's, the second go around at this since it didn't pass it in 2023, and there's so much support. If you would like to help contribute, I would recommend talking to your congressional representative in your area. This is House Bill 2808. This is the Homebuyer Privacy Protection Act. Voice your concern with your representative about how much this bill really means to you and why this bill should pass in the House. And we can probably do our own influencing. We can do our own, call on our representatives, because that is what our representatives are for. They're not just there to go have fun in Washington, D.C. and go spend their credit cards and go to the Washington Monument on national holidays. Like, they're there to represent us. They're there to serve us. We vote these people into office because we want our concerns and our issues brought before Congress. So if you are someone who's as passionate about this as me, again, reach out to your representative in your area and tell them about how you want the House Bill 2808 to be passed in this next congressional session. But that is everything for me. Again, if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video, share this with someone who might be interested in this information, and I will see you guys in the next one.